Cuba plans to produce 100 million doses of one of its 4 COVID-19 vaccine candidates in 2021. Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi has dismissed critics of the impeachment process against Donald Trump. In China, Yantai city authorities said on Thursday that it will take at least other 15 days to rescue the mine's trapper in a gold mine after an explosion 11 days ago. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In 2021, Cuba plans to produce 100 million doses of one of its 4 COVID-19 vaccine candidates. The Finland Vaccine Institute in Havana showed the press the laboratories where it will scale its production not only for mass vaccination in the country, but also for country members of ALBA and other nations with pharmaceutical agreements with Cuba.
Its potential to become one of the first countries in the world to vaccinate its entire population, 11.2 million people, against COVID-19, voluntarily and free of charge.
If everything goes well, this year we will administer the vaccine to the entire population.
Cuba would have finished its first COVID-19 vaccine, the first to be developed and produced in Latin America.
We are certainly planning to produce up to 100 million doses of Soberana 2, that is a vaccine that is more advanced now, is already.
The Finland Institute in Havana is coordinating its large-scale production output in order to share it with interested parties such as India, Vietnam, Iran and Venezuela.
Tourists will have the option, if they want to receive the vaccine in Cuba as well.
Unlike other vaccine candidates in the world, Soberana 2 does not need special refrigeration nor causes significant adverse reactions, since its antigen does not contain the live virus, but only parts of it. Cuban scientists are conducting phase 1 or 2 clinical trials on 4 vaccine candidates, Soberana 1 and 2, Abdala and Mambisa.
Ecuador starts this Thursday the vaccination campaign against COVID-19, known as Pilot Vaccination Plan. The inoculation process with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine will start in the city of Guayaquil, where it is planned to supply the dose to health workers. The immunization program is being carried out after the first shipment of 8,000 vaccines arrived in the country, out of the 86,000 doses established in the agreement between the Ecuadorian government and the international pharmaceutical company. It is expected that by March, the vaccines will be massively applied throughout the country. As of Thursday, Ecuador reports over 234 cases and 14,000 fatalities due to COVID-19. And polling stations in Ecuador are preparing for the application of the biosecurity protocols required for the presidential elections scheduled for next February. The National Emergency Operations Committee, COE, informed about the increase of sanitary controls in the middle of the electoral campaign, which started last December 31st. The COE made a call to the Electoral Authority to coordinate the application of mandatory measures and that not compliance would result in fines and sanctions, which will extend to the suspension of participation rights from 2 to 4 years. In Peru, health workers have been conducting national strike action for 9 days. They are demanding that the government invest more in the sector to face the health crisis sparked by COVID-19. Several doctors and members of the National Social Security Union who are conducting a hunger strike joined the national protest. The demonstrators are demanding an increase for the budget for the sector and insist that the government must comply with the salary scale and increase medical supplies to face the COVID-19 pandemic. The doctors are also demanding the resignation of the Social Security Service authorities due to their incapacity to defend labor and health rights. On Thursday, Colombia nears 2 million COVID-19 infections and registers more than 49 fatalities. The Colombian Health Ministry reported more than 100,000 infections in the last 24 hours. The ministry also reported that both the city of Bogotá and the department of Antioquia are the most affected areas, both suffering from a collapse in their healthcare systems.
It is very sad that we healthcare workers continue to expose our lives, even without our salary. It is even sadder that an institution as important as our hospital, which has a turnover of 8 billion pesos, only 1.9 million pesos are received, where its costs are more than 3 billion. That is not even enough to cover our payroll, and we continue to help those in need in public hospitals. Mr. President, stop lying to the country. We deserve respect.
Brazilian health experts asked the United Nations and the Pan American Health Organization to go to the city of Manaus, given the health emergency that the region is experiencing due to COVID-19. Specialist groups have requested the United Nations to visit the city of Manaus and observe the humanitarian emergency caused by the increase in COVID-19 cases. According to the experts in that region, the high number of COVID-19 patients has collapsed different hospital services. They denounced that the lack of health supplies and prevention policies have led this Amazonian region to a health emergency.
Durante la mañana del martes, 7 personas hospitalizadas fallecieron por falta de oxígeno en el municipio de Cuari, Amazonas.
On Thursday in Chile, family members and social organizations continued demonstrations to demand the release of political prisoners detained during the social unrest of October 2019. Thousands of people gathered in front of the parliament chanting slogans to demand the freedom of the prisoners. At the same time that the Chilean president, Sebastián Piñera, assured that granting freedom to those arrested in the social revolts of 2019 will be a breach of the government's laws. The public prosecutor's office reported a total of 5,084 people arrested for various crimes allegedly committed during the popular protest. The authorities specified that at least 648 people are in pretrial detention and 725 have already been convicted. In the United States, Speaker of the House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi has dismissed critics who said that moving forward with Donald Trump's impeachment will undercut the Biden administration's message of unity.
Very unifying to say, oh, let's just forget it and move on. That's not how you unify. Joe Biden said it beautifully. If you're going to unite, you must remember. And we must bring this in. And look, that's our responsibility, to uphold the integrity of the Congress of the United States. That's our responsibility, to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that is what we will do. And just because he's now gone, thank God, that you don't say to a president, do whatever you want in the last months of your administration. You're going to get a get out of jail card free because people think we should make nice and forget that people died here on January 6th, that the attempt to undermine our election, to undermine our democracy, to dishonor our Constitution, no, I don't see that at all. I think that would be harmful to unity.
The head of the World Health Organization held the United States announcement Thursday that it will remain part of the health body, saying it was a good day for global health.
The WHO Executive Board as head of delegation for the United States of America. Thank you, my friend, for your personal support for WHO over many years, and especially in the past year. We have benefited immensely from your participation as a member of our regular global health leaders' calls since the start of this pandemic. And thank you for your incredible leadership against the pandemic in the United States. This is a good day for WHO and a good day for global health.
And police in Oregon reported a group of about 150 protesters opposed to President Joe Biden marched through Portland late Wednesday. Authorities said the protesters damaged the headquarters of the Democratic Party of Oregon, added that they will were carrying anti-Biden and anti-police signs. The group smashed windows and spray-painted anarchist symbols at the political party building. Police said 8 arrests were made. The protesters were among a crowd that gathered in Portland on Inauguration Day. Palestinians in the West Bank say Thursday they do not expect much change in policy from the new Biden administration.
Difference whether it is Biden or Trump because the United States is a state of institutions. It has a vision and a strategy which these institutions implement through the president. Whether it is Biden or Trump, their policy is the same, and at the end, every party is looking after its own interests. We are fully aware that the U.S. administrations are always biased in their decisions towards the Israeli occupation, whether Democratic or Republican. Perhaps after these elections and Biden's inauguration as President of the United States, this may make a difference between the attempt of former President Trump, who was trying to impose the law of the jungle instead of international law and the international legitimacy, and his attempt to pass the so-called deal of the century, which was aimed at ending the Palestinian cause, but he failed in that because of the Palestinian people's unanimous rejection against any compromise on their rights.
Sweden made headlines around the world by not imposing the type of lockdown used elsewhere in Europe to curb the spread of COVID-19, relying instead on mostly non-coercive measures to tackle the virus, but faced with a stronger second wave over recent months, the northern nation has tightened measures in a bid to bring infections down. Faced with the second strong wave, the country has already tightened preventative measures since November last year. As cases multiplied, authorities urged people to limit social interactions to immediate family or a few friends. On Friday, the government announced that a ban on public gatherings of more than 8 people in force since November will now extend to private gatherings in public places, such as parties or ceremonies, but they are still not binding for gatherings within the home.
That we took the worst scenario from the Folkhälsomyndigheten and we doubled that one, and what we were actually seeing in terms of ICU, critical care patients, not ECMO patients but critical care patients, it's much higher than what we estimated from the numbers.
I have my own responsibility. Also, I cannot just act like a 2-year-old and say it was mommy's fault, or in my case it was the government's fault. I have to look after myself as well. It's my responsibility as well.
Netherlands outgoing Prime Minister Mark Rutte announced that the government plans to impose a curfew nationwide to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the country. The announcement comes after rolling out a series of new measures to fight the pandemic, including the suspension of multiple international flights. Rutte said that the curfew from 8:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. is scheduled to start on Friday or Saturday. However, the planned curfew has to gain prior approval by the Parliament. Those who don't comply with the curfew measure will face a €95 fine. To date, the nation registers over 927,000 infections and more than 30,000 deaths. Portugal's government on Thursday ordered the closure of schools for 2 weeks amid a surge in COVID-19 infections that the Prime Minister blamed on the rise of more contagious variant.
The National Public Health Institute, Ricardo Jorge, provided yesterday new data on the prevalence of the new strain on Portuguese society, referred to as the British strain, detecting a high increase in the prevalences of this strain this past week. Last week we had 8% of prevalence, and this week we have 20% prevalence, and studies indicate it can have a significant increase, that it may even reach 60% in coming weeks. In the face of this new strain and its speed of transmission, precaution advises us to interrupt all school activities for the coming 2 weeks, a suspension that will be later on compensated on the school calendar.
In China, Yantai city authorities said on Thursday that it will take at least other 15 days to rescue the miners trapped in a gold mine after an explosion 11 days ago. Rescuers have contacted 11 workers and provided them with food, water and other supplies. According to the latest reports, 1 miner died because of the explosion. Mine managers have been detained because of their intended delay in reporting the accident to competent authorities. The mine in Quixia, Shandong province, was under construction when the explosion happened on January the 10th. Mongolia's Prime Minister resigned Thursday after several popular demonstrations sparked by the death of a mother and her newborn due to medical negligence. Local new media show images of a woman and her newborn baby moved to an infectious disease center without enough covering clothes despite the freezing weather and the lacking of the accurate personal protective equipment while being moved to an infectious disease center. Mongolia's prime minister offered his apologies and said he must take responsibility. On Wednesday, around 5,000 protesters gathered in the square in the nearby of the government buildings in the capital Ulaanbaatar. The vice prime minister and the head of the National Emergency Commission handling the pandemic had already resigned on Wednesday evening, followed by the Minister of Health. The head of the hospital and the disease center in the middle of the row also resigned.
Yesterday, we saw that officials acted as if they were not born for mothers. My children watched it. It was disgusting. Many mothers come here. All protesters come here of their own accord. There is no political motivation for today's protest. I am one of the young parents. We are standing for our children because we don't see there will be a bright future for our children. My children worry about their future too, and they even made this banner. I'm here not just for the newborn's mother, but also for all mothers. We had witnesses that Mongolian government, male decision makers, and National Emergency Council, which handled the outbreak, has not ethical moralities and work without humane attitudes. That's why I rush here.
And the Indonesian authorities on Thursday ended the recovery operation searching for remaining victims of the Sriwijaya Air Boeing 737-500 that crashed on January 9th, killing at least 62 people on board. At a press conference, Transportation Minister Budi Karya Sumadi said the 2-week operation to recover bodies and debris has come to an end, but efforts were still being made to find missing components of the plane's damaged cockpit voice recorder. Divers retrieved the battered casing and cover of the cockpit voice recorded last week, near where the flight data was recovered 3 days after the crash. The memory model that recorded the conversation between pilots and other sounds in the cockpit is, however, still missing. So far, 43 victims have been identified from more than 300 body bags containing human remains sent to the National Police Disaster Victim Identification Unit.
Today is the last day of the extensive search and rescue operation. After much consideration, we call off the search and rescue operation today. Indeed, the search and rescue operation has officially been called off, but being the National Transportation Safety Committee, it is our obligation to conduct an investigation, and we will continue to search for the missing CBR.
On Thursday, India sent 1 million doses of a coronavirus vaccine to Nepal, a gift that is likely to help repair strained ties between the two neighbors. Nepal's Health Minister Hridayesh Tripathi said the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine, manufactured under license by the Serum Institute of India, will be given to health workers and other frontline personnel within a week to 10 days. Vinay Mohan Kuwatra, the Indian ambassador to Nepal, described this shipment as an historic event in the relationship between the two nations. India's foreign ministry said it sent 150,000 doses to Bhutan and 100,000 doses to the Maldives on Wednesday, and will send more to Bangladesh, Myanmar, and the Seychelles in the coming weeks. Twin suicide bombings hit Iraq's capital on Thursday, killing at least 32 people and wounding dozens. The attack hit the Bab al-Sharqi commercial area in central Baghdad amid heightened political tensions over planned early elections and severe economic crisis. The bombings are the first in years to target Baghdad's commercial area. No one immediately took responsibility for this attack, but Iraqi military officials said it was the work of the Islamic State group. South Africa braces for an increased surge in COVID-19 cases as the new variant found in the country has accelerated the spread of the virus and led to a rise in the number of infections. The strain, referred to as the 501.V2 variant, was identified by South African medical experts late last year and is said to be almost twice as infectious. Earlier this month, the variant caused more than 21,000 infections in a single day in South Africa, hitting a new daily peak since the coronavirus pandemic first hit the country. Health Minister Zweli Mkhize said Tuesday the recent case surge in South Africa is still likely to get worse, with the country's health system already under great strain. To this date, South Africa registers more than 1.3 million COVID-19 cases and nearly 39,000 fatalities. The United Nations mission in the Central African Republic and other authorities in the country held a ceremony to honor 2 peacekeepers killed in the last week. The soldiers, one from Rwanda and another from Burundi, died in 2 separate attacks in Bangui Grimari last week. The tensions have escalated dramatically since presidential polls in December, with rebels opposed to President Faustin Archange Touadéra's re-election. The groups tried to invade the capital last week. Security forces backed by UN's peacekeepers ultimately repelled the attack, the first of its kind in nearly 8 years. Earlier this week, the Constitutional Court upheld Touadéra's re-election. The president said he was open to talk with opponents to reach a national reconciliation, but not at any price. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.